All right, we're here today with Mikey Georgeson, who is looking fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Aug. Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, thanks for coming back on the show. Last time it was Young Southpaw, and we seem to have switched places. I guess because there are audio listeners as well, who I will describe. You are now wearing some very cool shades, a la Mr. Southpaw, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
a captain's hat.
It's a captain's hat. Well, I recently filmed a video with Professor, who was drumming on the album, Mr. Mikey, which is my name now for this, I guess. But yeah, this look all came together very swiftly in the morning. A visit to the dressing up shop looking for helium balloons. And there it was, the captain's hat and two pairs of aviator shades. But,
you seem to have
yeah.
some sort of mystical relationship with dress shops, as there was the Mr. Solo on Holloway Road years ago, was there not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But the whole thing about dressing up is it's interesting, actually. You know, one of my earliest memories is my sister's dressing up party. My sisters were both older than me, and I remember a sunny day in the back garden by the sea. The garden seemed to be full of beautiful girls in dressing up costumes, and I was too. So I kind of say that as a way of avoiding being a part-time punk. You know, I don't necessarily dress all the time like Mr. Mikey, but dressing up is part of the material vitality of life. That's what the ritual of finding temporal substance, you know, creating meaningful moments within life. And yeah, we met a lot of happy people on our quest, which I might tell you about as we go on.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm right now. First off, I want to get to the bottom of the name change, Mr. Mikey.
Yeah, well, that explains it, I guess.
In a
Again,
way.
it's like a contingent moment of happenstance.
So
We were
that was
walking.
real.
Yeah,
Listeners, we're now looking at the album cover, which is Mr. Mikey in front of a Mr. Mikey ice cream van. I thought that
yeah.
was photoshopped, but I
No,
should have known better, knowing you, that yes, there would have been some moment of
yeah,
happenstance.
yeah. And there was a kind of upsurge of felt intensities. And you know, I'm not promoting sugary cold snacks. It's just that feeling of the potential for the emergence of change for a child. An ice cream van, well, for me at least, it had that felt intensity about it. um, so yeah, when we found it, we were walking along, and there it was. And then I remembered that I'm ordinarily called Mr. Solo. So, and I've had this whole bullshit thing with my name all my life. So why not make Mr. Mikey a kind of fictional reality in becoming? So that's something that I enjoy. It's kind of, like I'm saying, it's sort of making these moments of experiential joy. Yeah.
Going with the inverse of that, if you were eating some ice cream while dressed up, would you fear spilling the ice cream onto said clothes?
Uh Probably, yeah, yeah. I don't know.
Over
But
the pandemic, I got really into undressing for dinner because I I was eating lots of soups and liquids and spicy like kimchi's, and I didn't want to spill them. I bought these really comfortable white shorts, which if you're stuck in your house all day,
yeah,
you want to be comfortable, and they looked cool as well. Sort of Argyle design, but I would take them off whenever I went into the kitchen to eat, so I wouldn't spill on them.
yeah.
I don't know if maybe I shouldn't be admitting that to the public, but it was a
No, I
vital
like.
part of the pandemic.
Yeah. Sorry if I gave you too much information. Yeah. No, I'm quite messy when it comes to getting food on my clothes and things, and paint or whatever. Yeah. But so I've become more conscious of it, I suppose. Yeah.
I realized that when I finally was in the presence of other people, that I could just pay a bit more attention to what I'm doing, so I won't spill and not having to, get as naked as I could in front of them.
Yeah. I know what you mean, though. Eating and not making a mess. it's, it's it's very English, I suppose. Yeah.
The ice cream fact of it too, though, there's a connection with pop music there, with the sweetness, as you mentioned, and the sort of joy
Yeah.
it brings.
Yeah. I think I met Mark Morris, who was in the Blue Tones. He gave me his album. I think that had an ice cream on the front. Yeah. It's sort of throwaway sweet. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. Yeah. A 99 is a thing of beauty, I suppose. It's a completely contingent design. It's not designed, is it? It's just how it comes out. Oh, you've got a cone and some soft ice cream, and it look good with a flake in, but it ends up looking like the perfect design.
It does.
Yeah.
But
Which yeah,
sorry, go on.
that's kind of what I mean by possibly that's material vitality. Something seeming intended because it's made with felt intensity. But
But the songs on the new record are anything but throwaway. You
yeah,
delve into some quite deep stuff. I mean, from the get-go.
yeah, I think I mean that's something that I've had to fathom, and a couple when people started saying about it, it's is it introverted? There's a sort of in introversion about some of the lyrics, as well as an openness. And that was nice that someone added the openness, because I always think that's the point of what I'm doing, is kind of just being open, not putting any sort of hindrance in the way of the expression of the idea. And if it lands, that's good. But yeah, I think there are some introversion. I'm not sure that's the right phrase. Do you know what I'm getting at? I suppose they're about those moments, dark nights of the soul, maybe. I don't know. Is that
Introversion seems like the right word.
Yeah, but I mean I don't want it to seem indulgent. It's I think it's sharing introversion as a sort of plurality. This is my introversion. Does it connect with your introversion? Sort of singular plurality, because I think there's a lot of, I mean, it's something I like to think about and could discuss, is, this sort of whole death of the author, and the singular creativity is something that's a bit, that's embarrassing and shameful. But actually, that's a part of a whole hierarchical construct, which has kind of killed that as a valid mode of expression, because it sort of got subsumed by what we call the colonial extractivist mode. We turned the individual into a consumer commodity, rather than actually acknowledging that everybody is a creative entity, and that movement towards creativity is part of the cosmos and becoming. It's in us all. And yeah, so I guess those conundrums are part of that existential angst, maybe. I mean, the song you might be thinking of, Pain, pain. You know, that was a discursive song because, as you know, I love William Blake, and he wrote Marriage of Heaven and Hell, which is kind of all about, I think, dissolving that dichotomy of contrasts and acknowledging that there's a felt intensity within the middle, which kind of needs no contrast. And, this came out of hearing several times, oh, we need the pain to experience pleasure. And I sort of thought about that. I thought, is that true? It's real pleasure is like this joy in becoming that doesn't need any previous reference points.
Mm.
Those reference points can become part of its material vitality and therefore emerging within the middle, but it's not really comparative. It's not part of a culture of judgment. I think that's that. I think, although the song itself doesn't seem to say that.
You seem quite fond of the song. I was wondering, I mean, you've given it, the lead off track on the album.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think, no, I keep moving online. I sort of, I think on the CD, it's track 2, but I moved it back to track 1 online. And I think what it was is my friend Ashley Hames, who made the documentary about Devon, came on tour with us in the sort of late 90s. He just contacted me and said, I love this song. I've made a video for it. And it totally reinvented the song for me, seeing it as that video. And I was kind of able to enjoy it in a way that I probably, I couldn't do when it was just the music, because it was too much of me. And seeing all those TikTok people dancing to it, it became quite emotional. I had that sort of, I could have a subjective experience of it.
Interesting. Yeah, because the video, you're not in it at all. Am I right? Or it's
Well,
mostly. Oh, yeah. Well, but yeah, the
yeah,
it is all TikTok people.
yeah. No, I'm not one of them.
Yeah. What's the first song on the CD?
It picks up CD. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on.
Costume change.
Change of Scene, which is the song we just made a video for.
Is this what you and the professor were doing?
Yeah. And because we've made a video for it, I've been listening to it a lot, and it's sounding really hefty. I'm pleased to say, it bears repeat. I think it bears repeat plays, and I love Graham, the professor's drumming. I mean, he and I formed, we were the original members of Devon, and it was just like a really close friendship, really. He would come round my house and drum, and on a suitcase. I think the kick drum was the suitcase that the snare was carried in. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I think my songs at the time were probably terrible, but Graham, the professor, was always exceedingly encouraging. And I think that's interesting, isn't it? Because it allows it to grow and develop. And that's what I might call, it's like an affirmative position. Instead of going, oh, don't do that because that bit's shit and sounds like that. Like you end up talking yourself out of everything. But what happened with Devon is that we arrived at a place where we could write songs about anything and take any shape to the songs, rather than sort of being within a sort of indie pop idiom. I think that you probably correctly say it was also to do with the sort of whole vaudevillian history of Brighton, which kind of infused our being, and which is funny, isn't it? Because it's about the same time that the vaudevillian aspect of bands like Blur started to emerge. But we named ourselves after a dead magician that I'd made a print of, Dave Devon and his spirit wife, and that created the flavor of the band. And so a bit like the 99, it felt good like that, and becomes a concept. The concept comes from the experience rather than the other way around. I don't know. Yeah. But
where did you encounter the Mr. Mikey van?
am I allowed to say? Yeah, it was on the south coast of England. Yeah, sort of west of Worthing.
But it's not where you live, right? It was completely unexpected.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's got a Facebook page. So yeah, I just thought. I mean, the thing is, maybe I think this through, but I think that whole business of taking moments in life and making them matter for expression, or as I'd call that, it meant I thought, no, sod it, I'm just going to do this now, rather than think, is it a good idea to name myself after an ice cream van? Probably not. No, I just went with the feeling, and did it quickly. It was like at the beginning of the summer is when I saw it, and that album was going to be called IOU, Mr. Solo album, and so it sort of, that as the last few tracks were added, I thought, no, it's Simply the Best, which is the last thing I think of calling an album. But because it was on the ice cream van, I had to call it that.
Now, you have 2 covers on the album. Were you tempted to cover the Tina Turner song, Simply the Best?
No, I mean, it would be quite good if I did, but it's not on Simply the Best.
I love
it's
it
on
when
the next now.
Yeah, that's the best, when title tracks appear not on the album with that title, like as a B-side or on the next one.
It's World Shut Your Mouth. Is that
2 albums later? The song came on St. Julian.
Yeah.
And Houses of the Holy was on Physical Graffiti. There's other like great examples that I'm drawing a blank on right now, but
I like that though. But a cover version. Yeah.
I don't think it's been done before, the cover version.
I mean, I got a lot of respect for Tina. I think I saw her live on the telly the other day. Yeah, she's got felt intensity. Yeah, so there. I bet. Yeah, I mean, I'll give it a go. Watch this space.
Excellent.
It's got that one note bass thing, doom, 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 which might make it tricky for strumming. Yeah. You're simply the best. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
And the album, yeah.
So
it does.
What do you got there?
After you.
I forgot what I was going to say, but you seem to be holding up something else that just
Oh
made
no,
it.
I was just reading the titles of the songs. I quite enjoyed putting that together. That's you know, like an old ice cream menu.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, which is a thing of beauty. Yeah.
So the covers that are on this album, tell
Yeah.
me about choosing those.
Um. Yeah. Which Smile I was asked to cover by Harry Pye. Um. There's a version of it by the Peddlers, which is sort of jazz. They're a jazz beat group. Uh, I love them. The singer's got a very distinct voice, but their version of Smile is out of this world. So I think my approach to cover versions with that one, it's sort of like I picked up a book and it had the chords and the lyrics in, and I sang it. You know, so it's kind of very direct. Just like seeing what comes out of me when I'm presented with that information, the chords and the lyrics, and then I have a go at it.
Wow. Because that, I would never have guessed it was that song from the intro, which is this totally like fuzzed out, blissy. It was like pure 1993
Yeah,
guitar sound,
yeah,
which I
yeah,
loved. And
yeah,
then it goes into Smile. So it was this sort of weird
yeah, yeah,
disconnect, but it totally works.
yeah. I mean, I think there must be various musicians out there who hear that kind of music that you're talking about and think, I'd like to do that. You know, that's a really good sound. So I think that was in there, but I just thought, well, here's the chord. Let's all play the chord, which is what that sound is. You know, it's like every instrument is playing that chord,
Mm.
and it sort of just comes out resonating. Yeah. But I was also quite pleased in that in the middle of that there's a sort of instrumental break in Smile, which is in all the versions, and it was a good excuse to dig out the Casio VL tone to do the solo, and I've given it away now. I'm going to turn the light on, Aug.
There we go.
Yeah. So yeah, the Casio VL tone
Very
is
nice.
what, you know, the Human League played Get Carter on that on the Dare album. So
It goes with
again,
your hat surprisingly well. Like
wow.
it
Yeah, I mean,
just,
this has a sort of felt intensity. I've had that since I was what, 11, same. And if I don't play it too often, I still get that thrill, you know, of when I was a kid. Like,
nice.
this is a machine that actual pop stars use. So yeah, and the other cover is Ashes to Ashes, and I was just trying to remember what made me cover it. I think what it was is I heard it on the radio and thought, I wonder if there's a song there, because you know, ever since I was a kid, I remember it was only since I got hearing aids in later life that I was able to sort of hear how songs are put together more obviously. And with Ashes to Ashes, I still had that sort of sense of, oh, this is an otherworldly entity. It's not really a song, it's just a sound being. And I just couldn't hear the chords in it. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are the chords? So I searched it up, and lo and behold, there are chords, and it's a song, and it's very like a Bowie song, but because it's got all the
Yeah.
you don't really notice. It's about the styling. So I did enjoy that, and then just discovering the simple. I mean, he's an exquisite melody and harmony creator as well as a stylist, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then of course, there was that whole weird coincidence that I went on holiday with my parents. And we both arrived late because we got the postcode wrong. Flopped on the sofa. Oh, let's look at what this cottage is about. The video for Ashes to Ashes was filmed on the beach outside. Um, so my mum, being a very good sport, said she agreed to come out and film the video with me in the squally rain, because again, I I had that felt intensity of, wow, look, that's the beach. As the tide goes right out, it looks like a sort of strange alien planet, and with the cliff. So, and you yourself, I believe you're interested in Carl Jung, and he would always say, that moments of synchronicity are, they're a sign that you're on the right path, not in a righteous sense, but in a sort of nutritious, creative sense.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And that is a most excellent synchronicity.
Yeah. And it's like, well, synchronicity knocked. I could have said, oh, no, I can't be bothered, actually. But no. Yeah. It worked out really well. It was lovely. And again, I'm quite interested in how art, as something that's ritualistic, actually can help enfold life and meaning in a way that doesn't ordinarily occur. So making that video with my mum as a piece of ritualistic art totally shifted the dynamic and the relation between us for that sort of emergent, creative moment of becoming. It was good, I think my mum really enjoyed it, and I did. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And of course, the equally big thrill was just like suddenly having an entity come into my head and tell me how to make the visual effect on the video that was the same, because it was such a strange, convoluted way of making it. I, originally thought, oh, there's bound to be a filter that I just press and it will instantly look like Ashes to Ashes. But lo and behold, there wasn't.
Not yet. You got to imagine that's coming.
I could make one. Yeah. So essentially, it's just like a layering with green screen, positive and negative, and press the button, and then it was like, wow, that's it. So
You got quite into green screen stuff over the pandemic. I remember there being some very good videos.
I mean, I developed my relationship with green screens during my doctorate. And I think, again, it's a bit like the Casio VL tone. It has a sense of material vitality. The green screen, to my generation, is just like an impossibly magical thing. I mean, maybe not to everyone in my generation, but like the way it kind of makes this instant tapestry of experience. yeah, it is magical. Yeah, but in a way that you know, that actual real life is a fictive encounter emerging. That's how I kind of feel about it. Yeah. So yeah, I lecture as well, and we gave all our students the sort of green party tablecloth. So we all experimented with green screen. I'm like a green screen evangelist. But then Foz told me, no, it shouldn't actually be green. The optimum color is a specific gray.
Oh,
Um, but you know,
they went for the rhyme, I guess.
yeah,
Gray screen just doesn't have the same ring to it as green screen.
gray screen. Yeah, yeah. So yes,
So tell me about Russian Dolls. That is my favorite on the album. It's just a
yeah.
fantastic tune.
You're gonna hate me.
Oh no.
Is I've remixed it online. The version online is a remix. Um, sorry, folks, but the one on the CD is an earlier mix. I mean, there's probably not anything in it to most people. It's quite an old song, or I don't know. You must have songs that you never finish. And
Yeah.
I just thought, I've had this. I think you knew
I
that
remember
I'd
there was
had.
like a minute long version on corporate
Yeah,
records at one point or something.
yeah, and I'd never figured out how to finish it, and I was just in a good place, worked out how to finish it. I think having some time during lockdown probably helped. Yeah,
Mm.
was that? Yeah, like it's a bit like a middle eight, isn't it? The verse in that, um, which sort of goes somewhere else.
Mm.
My friend Harry said that you know, if people happened upon that, they'd think it was like either an undiscovered 70s balladeer or a 90s boy singer, young boy singer.
Hmm. I had not thought of it that way.
But there, I got a sense of that in the sort of emergence has no comparison. Oh no, in the choruses, it has that sort of boy band feel, but that's just to me. I was like, oh no, this sounds really good, but it's a bit boy band. I think it's because I double tracked the vocal.
There you go.
Yeah. What do you think? Sorry, I'm.
I just thought it was a lovely ballad. I could see the 70s uh balladeer quality to it, but the boy band was new information to me, but I'm gonna have that in mind when I put it on later.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't intentional. Yeah. Again, I was just trying to play it as simply as possible. I think that's one of the things through the album is not to over embellish.
So that's simply the best is has a sort of double meaning.
Yeah, like it. That. Thank you, Aug.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah. Simply the best. Yeah.
Do
Although
you
there
have
are. Yeah.
go on?
I was
There
just
are?
going to say there are some sort of little embellishments throughout the album, because the other thing I thought is, yeah, have fun with the instrumental arrangement.
Yeah.
So contradicting myself there. Yeah.
Do you would you consider that you have like a relationship with Russian art? I'm thinking here of the lyric from One Thing After Another. We were doomed from the start, reading too much Dostoevsky.
Oh yeah. Well, I think there is an otherness, isn't there? And my friend Graham Bendel, is that a name drop? Yeah. So he's written a book called The Comforter, and he sent it to me, and I wrote back to him eventually saying how much I loved it and how much in my head it sounded like it was translated from Russian. And that's a sort of tone that really appeals to me. It's kind of, there's an otherness and a sense of otherness and a sort of detached subjective experience that is totally kind of at odds to the sort of conventional Western tone of novels. Yeah. I mean, I'm a member of that. There's a website, a Facebook group, which is, you know, sort of Russian imagery and films, and I'm aware that you shouldn't really romanticize the Eastern Bloc because there's a lot of trauma associated with it. But at the same time, it is an opening, ironically, onto a sense of the possibility of change. That's kind of that's joyful but deeply ironic, if you get what I mean. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
Circling
I
back
mean,
to go on.
No, after you.
Circling back to the simplicity of it, Gilded Cage is the most folky thing I've ever heard you do.
Oh yeah.
Sort of minor English ballady sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It interests me to think, where do these things come from? But I mean, I did grow up with a dad who sung me folk songs. You know, instead of reading, he'd sit on the bed and sing grisly folk songs. So I love that. Yeah. And they were all about murder and really horrible things. Which, yeah. So I was just trying, there's a guitarist, Fahey, his surname, Fahey.
John. John.
It's John, yeah. And a friend put me on to him. The friend who put me on to him, I've got his, he made this album. He's called Retep Folo. But John Fahey kind of helped me understand how there is a sort of mode of making music that's more akin to making art. I don't mean in a highbrow way, but when I make a painting or a print, you know, all the mistakes and personality they're a valid part of the tapestry of that image's meaning. And in music, that's often you know, erased. You've got to make it perfect and shaped. So yeah, he gave me an opening onto that, and that song I think has some of that in there. Yeah, it was actually a hard one to record.
Oh.
Yeah.
One thing I've always noticed is that the energy of a demo when I'm writing it, if I record as I'm writing, I can never recapture that, despite there being, you know, quote unquote mistakes in, you know, the playing, like the flub notes or whatever. If I go back and play it perfectly, you know, again in quotes, it just doesn't have that magic of the original idea spewing forth onto tape.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm very aware of that, and I think that experience helps you to not overlook at what the process cognitively as you're re-recording, or that helps me at least, is to sort of carry on feeling it. And I think I've got better at retaining what I would call emergence, because that is the joy of a song, is its emergence. And I think that could be why, you know, a lot of people find it hard to finish them, because the joy of it is how it emerges
Yeah.
and the shaping it up. It's not as intense. And yet I think there is, you know, through experience, you can somehow allow that to continue to emerge.
Have
You
you
know,
seen
but
the McCartney documentary, McCartney 321 with Rick Rubin?
oh, no,
I don't know if it's available in Britain, but
yeah,
over
I
here
think some.
it's fantastic. And one thing that struck me was he was talking about how he and John always finished songs, like when
Yeah,
they were writing them. And I think that's a big thing. Like if you leave it, you
yeah,
tend to get away from that initial magic. But if you sit there through it and
yeah,
finish it, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I mean, that to me is part of the aesthetic. Um, so if you haven't got enough time, make that part of the aesthetic.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is, so the art does you. You know, that's the old adage, isn't it? That you don't do art, it does you. So if you've only got that time, then do it there, and what comes out comes out. Um, yeah, you can. There's no rules though.
That's true.
I think that helps. It's, yeah,
Tell me
not
about
be.
Scatterbrain. That was another one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, that I think it's one of those songs where anthropologists will go, "Ah, you see." No, yeah, I kind of, it's like a pie-in to, you know, being scatterbrained is a bad thing in our culture. But I think I just suddenly thought, well, actually, it's a diverse, creative, emergent, materially vital way of being, you know, with nomadic freedoms. And it was an attempt to celebrate that. I celebrate the, you know, so it's not bad to have a scatterbrain. It's perfectly natural. And in fact, not having a scatterbrain is about control. So, you know, meandering is where difference and emergence and frankly useful stuff occurs. And it's by all facing the same way in our sort of regimented non-scatterbrain that we repeatedly fail to find the meandering potential.
Bringing us back to the right brain, left brain dichotomy that
Well, yeah,
we
I
were
mean, that's
discussing, I
one
guess.
way of looking at it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, can left brain control order, linguistic control, right brain, what I would call, you know, sort of radical empiricism. You know, my experience of the wildflower is a direct and emergent one. It's not a flawed version of a perfect flower up in this transcended space. It's my transcendence comes from that real contingent experience. That, you know, that's a sort of very, well, I think that's a Blakean way of experiencing, encountering life. So we're not sort of you know, for me, I'm not thinking about life as something that relates to a previous pre-given set of information. Although it's almost impossible to avoid that, you know, the guy book. But yeah,
Have you read Finnegan's Wake?
no, I must.
Are you familiar?
Vaguely, yeah. I'm sort of working up to it, I think.
I've had
No,
it for
very important to Marshall McLuhan, who I love. You know, part of his whole sense that as uh, beings or becomings, we inhabit an acoustic 360-degree space. You know, so what which I also think relates to, you know, what I'm calling radical empiricism, you know, using the senses to encounter in a full-on, in the round, not fixed point perspective, codified version. And so McLuhan gets that from Finnegan's Wake, I believe.
Excellent. Yeah, I
Finnegan's
started.
Awake.
Yes. I started
Yeah.
it last week after, you know, 15 years of wanting to read it and having read a lot about it. And it is just wonderful. And I find I have to read it aloud to myself as I read it with my eyes, because it's meant to be perceived, you know, both ways, you know, visually
Yeah.
and orally. But it's all about, it's kind of like just the language of just before thoughts enter into the being as thoughts and language. It's a sort of like, you know,
Wow.
the everything that goes into what comes into, you know, emerges as a word, because there's so
Yeah.
much plurality going on. I'm loving it. So I think you might as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I can see that in your work, Aug. Yeah, the sort of relationality and the meandering. Yeah, and I think, you know, I don't want to sort of go on about it, but a couple of years ago, I did a show and I read some stuff, and the people there said, "Oh, I hadn't realized before how important emergence was to your work." And I think that is the sense of longing that we have. You know, we feel that joy of emergence, but then once that's in this realm of civilized progressive order, entropy begins. And
Yeah.
you know, so how do you remain indigenous to nature and remain in the realm of emergence, where you're not basing your culture on a pre-given judgment? You know, that words are these carriers. Words didn't know they were going to become so important. They just thought, oh, we'll fill in for a bit. Yeah, this is good. Oh no, we're fucking everything. You know. So
I read somebody describing Finnegan's Wake as Joyce's belief that the fall of man coincided with the fall into language, which I was like, yeah, that's
yeah,
very good.
yeah. I it's the shame of equivalence, you know, and culturally, that's why, you know, when I write songs and we write songs, I think that is a realm of emergence, you know, and it's not completely about linguistic order and controlled sense. So that's what it is for me. But
That's something
yeah,
I've always liked about your songs, is that I'm often surprised by the lyric of what the rhyme is. It is not expected.
yeah. Well, it's an opening onto something other than the, you know, what's the word? The homogeneous mode, yeah, of. And I think a lot of those 60s pop writers, you know, they sort of drew upon nonsense verse, because that again is an opening onto something that is more about feeling and intensity, the feeling of language. And I think even with William Burroughs, you know, in the Cut Up, that's about the materiality of words and reclaiming that, because that aesthetic and feeling is essentially, I think, and other people think, I think, you know, that's how stuff works. And all the codified stuff is kind of a toehold that helps us to navigate.
Hmm.
So cutting language up like Burroughs makes it more vital again. It creates a felt intensity. And I think I've always I don't know, because I'm hard of hearing, perhaps I've always had that relationship with words, that I don't hear them fully, so they're more malleable and sculptural, perhaps.
I revisited Steve Aylett's work recently.
Oh,
Lint, some stuff I had read years ago, and just there's always more to find it. And I love the bit in Lint where Jeff Lint is visiting Burroughs and takes the cut up
oh,
pieces of poetry on the floor and rearranges them back into their original structure.
yeah. Wow. I mean, whenever I happen upon Steve Eilert, I feel like I need to get back in my box because he's a genius. I love his use of words. And is it called the true original?
The heart of the
His,
original.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's phenomenal.
yeah.
So hats off.
Literally.
Yeah.
I remember you introduced me to him after a gig way back when you did with Keith Top of the Pops. We were talking about books afterward, and you're like, I work with this guy. You should check it out. And then I got the Lint, and I was just blown away.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
We were talking about 60s songs, and She's My Agony Aunt. That verse, especially to me, is very 60s pop.
Yeah. Did you notice it? It's that's a moment on the album where I thought, I really like it sometimes when people put a track on that's it's just the guitar. I think I recorded the guitar and vocals at the same time on that. So, it does have an immediacy, I hope. Yeah. And I was walking through the park. He said, why do young people walk so slowly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of it is just everyday experience. But I think when I recorded that, I had a plan to make a whole album of just acoustic, very direct, slightly unhinged material. But as often happens, it became part of that album rather than another one. Yeah. And it's got the sort of phase on the vocal, which, to fans of Syd Barrett might be familiar. I'm reading the book about Syd Barrett at the moment by Rob Chapman.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very good. Yes.
I would find that interesting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite sad.
Yeah.
I've just got to a bit where, that's upsetting. And it's quite interesting, and it resonates with me. It's like Syd Barrett, lots of people who were at art college with him said they were quite surprised that he went into pop because his disposition was much more suited to painting. And and I could connect with that. It's like I was saying earlier, how painting is naturally about process, and because a lot of the syntax that I'm using is not about process. It's like the shiny image. It creates potential for upset, I suppose. I mean, Syd Barrett reacted very strongly to being put in those positions of having to be part of a shiny package, when the whole way he'd arrived at his creative process was through process and creating a tapestry of material vitality cut up, and not honing a sort of pre-given finished product. So again, it's that sort of emergence versus entropy thing, but by all accounts, a lot of people say it made him quite a difficult personality. for a period anyway. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I mean, I love those songs, and
Yeah.
that period of songwriting is a very special time. You know, I think I used to find it hard to understand why that hadn't been developed more. You know, the whole idiom of 60s psychedelic expanded songwriting. You know, I remember thinking, oh, like I Am the Walrus, you know, that's just like the pinnacle of pop writing. But we've gone back to this sort of conventional pre-given linguistic structure of songwriting. And my boys used to have to listen to Nuggets, you know, the sort of psychedelic compilation
Mm.
in the car quite a lot. And I think a lot of those songs have that sort of combination of sort of expanded psychotropic encounter, but also with the everyday.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You make a
Yeah.
very good point about that being how to go, that kind of got dropped from mainstream pop
Yeah.
music. Whereas there are quite a few people who I listen to who continued with that. I mean, Robin Hitchcock, probably the first one that comes to
Oh,
mind
yeah. Yeah.
lyrically, at
Yeah.
least. But yeah,
Yeah.
it would be nice to hear more of that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I just don't think songs have to make sense. I mean, but you know, they have a sense, and the obvious example is, you know, Bob Dylan, just like massively resonant songwriter who managed to sort of weave meaning and a visceral aesthetic together. And I can imagine that's why the Beatles felt quite competitive with him, because he opened it up in that way. And I think as you probably know, you know, with songwriting, you can be quite explicit, but sometimes you just have to go with the aesthetic and the sound and the feel of the words,
Mm.
and a meaning emerges. Yeah, you know, it's a ritualistic. What's you know, it's a way of deciphering meaning through ritual. Sometimes, I mean, I've spoken to Eddie Argos from Art Brew about this. He's, you know, because he's totally the opposite. I think, you know, he's thinking, oh, I'm going to write this. The song is about this, and it's going to be this. Whereas I think largely I set off and find out what the song is about through making the song.
Yeah.
And I mean, Eddie's probably far more intelligent than me in that he can do that. You know, my intelligence comes from below. Or if I have an intelligence, it is from below and it comes up. And if I'm lucky, it's like, oh, that was quite articulate.
I often have a thing where like the lyric will emerge and I'll fight with it because for some reason, I don't want that to be the lyric. Though deep down, I know I need to accept that is the lyric. That is what this song is, how it's becoming.
Yeah.
It's quite an odd, I don't know what that block is, but I come up against it quite a bit actually. But then you realize that no, this is what it is. And this is how it shall be.
Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I often think that's my cognitive controller, who's thinking about what other people think. Yeah. And I have to be very careful that I don't try and take too much credit and get carried away with myself. Oh, that was good of me writing that song. That was, because it doesn't really work like that. You know, the bit of me that is reflecting and post-rationalizing was not that involved, but it's a bit of me that likes it when people say how much they like the song. Yeah, thanks. You know, I don't really get it, but you know, and I'm not afraid to not understand it, and for people to tell me that emerges in the song, and I hadn't really noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there are a couple more songs on the record I wanted to ask you about.
yeah.
We're All in Love with Kate.
Oh yeah. I mean, we are. Yeah. No, I had a Facebook crush, I think, when I wrote that. But then it quickly emerged that there are various Kates throughout my life. And
Same here, actually.
yeah. And the funniest one was, yeah, Kate Pearson from the B-52s.
I was going to ask about her. I saw the your tweet about it the other day.
Yeah, because my next door neighbor's sister, Kate, God bless her, she was called Kate, and she looked like Cindy in my Cindy Wilson. But I therefore thought Cindy Wilson was Kate. But until I was about 51, and I'm a big fan of the B-52s, and I thought Cindy Wilson was Kate Pearson all that time of buying. I don't know how I'd not managed to see that they weren't who I thought they were. But yeah, I was reflecting upon that the other day, and I realized that how Cindy Wilson and Kate Pearson were potentially a massive influence on me. Maybe more, you know, maybe more than Fred. Although, you know, because he had the moustache, but it was their love of wigs. They were very strong, emotionally resonant performers, but they weren't afraid to change and cut into the sort of seriousness of emotion and mix it up. And that, I think that tone has stuck with me. Yeah. Because some of their performances are very emotionally unsettling. You know, Give Me Back My Man, and it's powerful, powerful stuff. But in a way that you don't really hear from other bands, you know. It's not a sort of broadcast emotion. It's more of an effective frequency. Yeah, a felt intensity. Yeah. So other Kates. Who are your Kates?
Actually, I got, this is like the first page of my memoir I put out, Nick Cave's Bar. The first page lists all my Kates who were ones I knew in real life. Yeah, because there's each chapter I named after Nick Cave lyrics, because we were looking for his bar that didn't actually exist. But first chapter is I want to tell you about a girl, and the woman who told me that Nick Cave owned a bar in Berlin was named Katie. So I led up to her with the list of my Kates.
Wow, that's funny. That's a nice moment of synchronicity. Yeah, yeah, and that track's got the Professor drumming on as well.
Nice.
I love the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but the Professor shapes a track with his drumming. It's different to having. Yeah,
you're saying about the Professor's drumming.
Oh. Yeah, no, I've always thought he has a very empathetic way of feeling the song in his drumming, and I love the way he steers it. through his playing,
Hmm.
you know, which is, yeah, he's enormous drummer.
A lefty too.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so I the weird thing is, when he used to come around to my house, he had never played the drums. So I've kind of witnessed him from being not a drummer at all to a technically accomplished, enormous drummer.
Wow.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. So there's a bit of a mystery there. It's like, how do you do that? You know. But
The other one I wanted to ask you about was Seeping into Space. Another
oh yeah,
chorus I really like.
the what?
The chorus, another chorus that I really like.
Which bit's the chorus? It's like,
Uh, the major key bit, I guess.
oh, yeah. Because I don't know if you gathered that song was written on a workshop. I like that. It sounds a bit sort of cultish. But I went to America with Tony Sampson, who was my doctorate supervisor, and we did some workshops at the summer school for the study of affect. You know, affect as in feeling, and encounter through what I say is an extra embodied experience. And as part of that workshop, as in my other guise as Professor Kimi Pekpo, I gathered people to write a song. So they'd heard our talk and our lecture, and then all the ideas from that sort of resurfaced in the lyric. And there was a lady there. I'm really sorry, I can't remember her name, but it's on the album actually. No, I'd have to. But she, we were talking about fiction machines. You know, it begins fiction machines
Yeah,
are at
work.
so like the fiction machine is to me what I was saying about sort of real life is like a fictive emergence. If you're living in a sort of aesthetic ontology, you know, where you feel the creative vibrancy of the cosmos, you know, you make your life this sort of fictive emergence. And at times that can feel like obvious. Kay Gordon, yeah, she was like late to the seminar, and she said, oh yeah, like we had a whiteboard there, and Kay is a teacher, and I think she found that problematic. So having to write on a whiteboard, which I can totally understand. And but she said, someone said fiction machines are at work as their lyric, and then Kay said, and to me that's a kind of shutdown, but she was referring to the whiteboard.
Ah,
and, and I was sitting there with my piano, which they kindly lent me. It was a good piano. Yeah, it was nice. And that's the thing I love about these workshops. That was a beautifully, actually intense emotional experience, because I thought, I'm there with Tony. I've come from England. There's these people here in the seminar. I've said we're going to write a song. Oh shit, Kay's really, she says to me, that's a kind of shutdown. And it's like you were saying, you've got to accept it. So I said, yeah, right, okay, this is the lyric. So I started, fiction machines are at work, and to me that's a kind of shutdown.
nice.
And then we went, and it was a really joyful experience once I'd accepted. I think, you know, the whole smorgasbord of feelings as valid and verified within the tapestry of the song, and not a sort of, hey everyone, this is great, we're all having a great time, but you know, the shutdown becoming part of the joy was pivotal.
Mm.
And yeah, the other, like, silent in sound seeping into space, that's Angelica Vasquez came up with that. They're all credited on the album. Yeah. And what was beautiful is, like, we're sitting there playing it, and Tony, who was my doctorate supervisor, just like plugged the guitar in and was playing along on the electric. He'd been in a band himself, but you know, it wasn't planned that we would do this in the lecture. So yeah, but that was a peak moment, and that is probably a good point to sort of mention, that I think in terms of all my music and art, it's like finding the openings onto those moments that has kind of led what I do. And I always compare that to, you know, selling the cow for the magic beans. You should be pursuing a career, not trying to get magic beans, you know. So, but it brings pleasures.
Yes.
So yeah. And that's, I mean, Tony, I played in the mix and he said, oh yeah, the sound of error, because I left some of his scratchy guitar in, and it, you know, he probably would have liked to smooth it out, but it's that thing about, yeah, keeping some of the emergence.
Yeah. So is the album out? Like, you can buy it online, but the CD is
Yeah,
out
you
next
can buy
week.
it on my website, but it's going to be released through the world conglomerates later in the month.
Okay.
So in my, I'm just like playing it. I thought, you know, I'll make a record and I'll release it to friends that have been supportive, and that's not properly releasing it. That's what I was thinking. You know, I mean, these days it's so confusing, isn't it? You know, what is released? And I think in my sort of striated order, you know, releasing it is when it's on iTunes or Amazon.
And the CD is a different version than what's online right now, with a apparently different track order and a different mix of Russian dolls.
Yeah.
For the collectors out there.
Oh yeah, the completists. I should make the Russian dolls a free download, maybe, so that if you've got the album on CD, you get the new mix. Yeah, I just wasn't happy with the vocal. I mean, that's the treachery, isn't it, of digital technology? Yeah. But yeah.
Well, I have to get going in a couple minutes, but anything else you want to add about the album?
Gosh, there probably is, or like I'm immense that everyone who's bought it really enjoyed the yeah.
I think we're back.
Are we back? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you keep moving, I'll know that you're still there. Yeah, like we're on about. I was going to say that you know, sort of trusting the creative emergent process was really pleasurable when we just made this video for a change of scene, and it's got a lyric in it which is you probably would have grappled like I did. Let's dive in a hollow submarine. And it wasn't until I'd watched the video a few times I thought, oh yeah, like that's why he's wearing that hat. You know, so it kind of all seemed to fit into place.
So is the hat the new wig?
Yeah, the hat could be the new wig. Yeah. But I think when I wrote that lyric, I suddenly had this feeling that actually, if I could get past all this sort of preconceived ideas, Yellow Submarine is a genius song. And it's about, we all live in a sort of oceanic brain, in a aesthetic heightened awareness of cosmic aesthetic ontology. And that's what I think the song is. But it's become a sort of sticker of psychedelia, which you don't see behind the surface anymore. But, you know, it's in the town where I was born, you know, like Jung's Liverpool as a sort of city of dreams. And so I had a sort of half idea of, I'm going to write stuff about Yellow Submarine, but instead I included the lyric hollow submarine in the song for change of scene, which I think, you know, it's like seeking an opening onto another way of relating and being. Which, yeah, I'm just an old hippie, I suppose. Which is no bad thing. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for coming on the show, Mikey.
Yeah, that's yours. No, it's a total pleasure. Yeah, Mr. Mikey. Yeah. So